Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this extremely timely and audacious conference hosted by Linda Uneze, themed Navigating the Storm, Thriving in a Transforming Nigeria. I suspect Linda deliberately chose this title in case anyone was of the mistaken view that life is a bed of roses while living and doing business in Nigeria is a piece of cake. Neither of this holds true, but that does not mean one cannot attain tremendous success in life or create outstanding opportunities in the most unlikely of situations, even in Nigeria. My role today, therefore, is the unenviable task of teasing out what tools we require to attain a reasonable measure of success and how best to recognize, create, and utilize opportunities when they do present themselves in Nigeria. Unenviable, because if things don't turn out well, you will blame me for bad advice. But if things do turn out well, you will be celebrated as a genius and no one will remember me. Before I continue, let me thank Linda for allowing me to present virtually my keynote in this way, following the demise of my dear aunt. She was one of the first souls to welcome me in hospital on the day of my birth 58 years ago. And I was one of the last souls that saw her from her hospital bed moments before she passed on to the afterlife. Her funeral is today in my hometown. And try as we could, it was impossible for me to be both in Rivers State and Lagos today. May her gentle soul rest in peace. I've been asked to deliver a keynote titled Driving Business Innovation Amidst Complex Market Forces. This is as interesting as it gets because one thing is certain: life is complex. Which means your very survival and the ability to excel is to first become comfortable with complexity. I will term that simplifying complexity. And how do you achieve this? I will give you 3 simple steps. Number 1, no one knows tomorrow. Only God does. Do not believe all the pundits who come to you with predictions about what tomorrow brings. There is no human being alive today, nor will there be any in the future that can accurately predict what life has in store for you tomorrow. This puts everyone on the same playing field as far as tomorrow is concerned. What will therefore give you a big advantage over the next person is not accurately predicting what tomorrow brings, but what you are going to do with your here and now, the present. That brings me to the next point. Take hold of your present. The only moment you have control over is this present moment. It is good to be aware that the present moment becomes past in seconds, and if no action is taken in the moment and that time passes, it is exceedingly difficult to redeem. For example, you are a female entrepreneur with this innovative idea, and you happen to be at this conference, and you have been looking for a meeting with Adesua Okumbo Rhodes for ages, but you have not been able to secure an appointment. What would your plan of action be? Would you wait until tomorrow, or would you make a straight line for where she is and seize the moment? Which brings me to number 3, be ever ready. I cannot remember where I read this, but the quote says, success is 90% preparation and 10% execution. This is applicable in every aspect of life, and more so in turbulent seasons, where the brain goes into tunnel vision, focus mode, and relies more on what you have trained the body to do than what the situation itself dictates. Whether it's climbing a mountain like I did, where I trained aggressively for 5 months to climb for a climb that lasted 5 days, or it's pursuing major contracts which sometimes can take 2 years or more to close. How prepared you are will determine success. So, when you finally corner Adesua and you have only 3 minutes to pitch and get her hooked on your idea, what would you tell her? Please be prepared. Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to prosperity, but those who are hasty become poor. In simplifying complexity, your ability to drive business innovation is enhanced. However, there are some basic things that you must know about yourself to be truly successful. Number one, trust God. Of paramount importance is your spiritual anchor and why you are doing what you do. Every good gift comes from above. And if your business is about doing good, making a difference, and meeting a need, you can be sure it serves a higher purpose and therefore already has an advantage in the survival game. Now, not everyone has a relationship with God, but for those who do, they will tell you that there is a peace of mind and a clarity of vision that comes to play often in the most turbulent of times. It is in this season you will appreciate what it means to put your trust in God to help navigate the storm and bring simplicity to complexity. Number two, do not be afraid of complexity. You cannot afford to entertain fear in this business of life. When you understand that everything about this world involves human beings, and the human being is extremely complex and irrational, you and I inclusive, then you are better able to mentally embrace that complexity is a way of life. So, I find that Nigeria does not frustrate me. I simply approach Nigeria with the lens that I am dealing with a human being on the other side of the problem. So they have the ability and the tendency to making life suddenly extremely complicated. Rather than become overburdened with worry, I mentally set to adapt to the new reality I find myself at that point in time. Conversely, because we are dealing with human beings, building a good relationship and a strong network is a good survival kit to have. You need human beings to present opportunities your way and open doors to drive your success. Number three, innovate or die. Nothing drives innovation more than a need to survive. In my company, we have a mantra that says innovate or die. One challenge in doing business in Nigeria is the speed at which copycats multiply the moment it becomes obvious that there is money in the business you are in. Yesterday, it was oil and gas, while today it's mining and fintech. These are the new kids on the block. Whatever the industry you find yourself in, as the number of players increase, you are forced to find new ways of solving old problems or lifting the game to a higher level where the competition is less. It is a mortal mistake to remain fixed in what and how you have been doing business all this while. More businesses collapse as a result of remaining stagnant than from market forces that are complex. This brings me to number 4. If no opportunity exists, then create one. Many times we are waiting for the opportunity to present itself, and in the waiting, we're getting old, in the waiting, we're getting broke, and in the waiting, we're getting frustrated. Sometimes you will have to take the nonsense and frustration that life is throwing your way and create something unique out of it. In other cases, you need to take a piece of information and create an opportunity that works for you. That is where innovation comes in. A few years ago, we got information that the president wanted to meet a campaign promise to have stable electricity supply within 100 days of coming into office. The opportunity was immediately seized by a company that provides emergency power to remote mining locations in Africa. And they signed a contract to provide massive generators to the federal government for emergency power in the FCT. We did not start fighting to be the ones to provide the power. Instead, we created an opportunity around providing the logistics of supplying the diesel that the power plant needed to be powered. We created a contract inside a contract and sealed one of the most lucrative deals of the time. Number 5, nobody can do what you are uniquely created to do better than you. The Bible tells me that you are unique. It says that you have been fearfully and wonderfully made. And that says something about how much self-belief you need when you are facing complex market forces. When you know yourself and what you are capable of, you will design solutions to the problems facing you in a way that only you are best able to solve. The reality is that every business is simply a problem being addressed, and the greater the problem solved, the more successful the business becomes. Embrace complexity. It pays big time. When I address a problem, I automatically look for potentially how big that problem can be. And if I can mentally picture the scale of the problem to be massive, I know I have a winner if I can find the solution. There's a trade-off though. The bigger the problem, the more time it takes to design the solution, but it is worth it. Number 6, complexity equals opportunity. If there is one thing I have come to terms with while traveling the world, it is this: the world does not lack money to execute any project, no matter the size and complexity. What is often a hindrance is how the opportunity is presented and who is doing the presenting. I was asked to come and speak to a group of sovereign wealth fund managers in Spain recently. The group represents a body that has $13 trillion at their disposal, ready to spend. And the continent with the most obvious need and therefore the greatest opportunities is Africa. Nigeria was identified as one of the 4 countries that they would like to invest in, but they have been unable to crack how to do so. Why? No one has taken the time to put together a compelling enough reason behind the vast opportunities in mining, in power, in technology, in mobility, in healthcare, in education, in manufacturing, in agriculture, just to name a few areas of their interest. Often cited is the complex nature of doing business in Nigeria, which means that if you can just take a moment to address complexity, you potentially will be unlocking upwards of $13 trillion into the Nigerian economy. Which brings me to this: opportunity is for the season. This seems obvious until you begin to see how many opportunities get passed by. Some people see the opportunity, they think about the opportunity, they consider doing what the opportunity presents. Some even begin to work on the opportunity, and then they stop and move on to something else. There are many reasons why this may happen, but one thing you must develop is the mindset that when an opportunity arises, you must seize it and run with it until a logical conclusion, whatever that may be. Life works in a funny way. It's almost like taking part in a lottery. The chance of winning is greatly enhanced by how many tickets you buy. Many of them will be losers, but one will turn up that is the jackpot. The game is to keep on playing until you hit the winner. Giving up is not an option. So this brings me to the final point that I need to make. Cash is king. Let me repeat that. Cash is king. Because you can be certain that tomorrow will visit you with some major complexity that will throw every carefully planned path of your life out of the window, you must develop a habit of saving for saving's sake. Not saving for a rainy day, saving for saving's sake. At such moments, having cash to ride the storm is invaluable. You will be aware of families that have had their incomes wiped off completely because of a terminal disease like cancer and no insurance policy. I am sure that the issue of saving is one of the hardest things to discuss for people in Nigeria today, where the needs seem to outstrip resources. However, just think about this a little. Just take a brief moment to think about this. If you are spending more than you are making, where is that leading to? Certainly, poverty and disaster are not far away. This means you really have no choice but to begin taking life-saving methods to curb unnecessary expenses and become incredibly disciplined in putting something aside consistently. The true beauty about saving, though, is this: it compounds over time, and every now and then a deal will land before you that your cash availability will enable you pick up for the cheap while others are struggling. Let me conclude by highlighting a few opportunities that Nigeria presents, which are low-hanging fruits that you may begin to explore. 1. Tech-enabled services. Pay attention to agriculture, health, mass transport, logistics sectors, especially where you can eliminate regulatory hurdles. 2. Data management. Curate and leverage a compendium of investment opportunities, then organize data sets to make sense to investors. 3. De-risk opportunities. Identify serious players, clean up businesses and their decks, coach pitches to potential investors so that you make the business attractive to them. This is not an exclusive list, nor is it a guarantee that these are the only path to drive innovation in a complex market, but they are good markers. From my experience on where investors have faced serious bottlenecks, anyone that can solve these bottlenecks stands in exceptionally good stead to creating an in-demand business that will stand the test of time. I want to thank the convener Linda Uneze once more for the opportunity to deliver this keynote, and I wish you all a wonderful deliberation. Thank you for your attention, and God bless you all. God bless DBNC, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Cole, once again for honoring our invitation and for inspiring us today. So we have some questions from the audience, but before I take their questions, let me start with my question.
You have a question?
Yes, of course I do have a question. I'm a business owner as well, and I'm running a business in Nigeria, so I do have a question for you. So when you were talking about cash being king, that's something that a lot of business owners can relate to. How can SMEs in Nigeria, often operating with limited capital, build a culture of innovation?
Okay, so capital, no matter how limited it is, as long as there is capital, saving is a character issue. It's a culture you must develop. Now, a lot of times for those who do business, there would always seem to be more opportunities than you have cash. And so many times you have this urge to spend more, believing that as long as you spend, sometimes some people say fake it till you make it. There's nothing like that too. Fake it does not make it, fake it breaks it. So what you have to do is understand that there is a building patient process. And in that patient process, just keep a little, keep a little, keep a little. And no matter what, try not to break that. Now you have to keep it in. I remember that I used to keep it in very difficult, no checkbook. I'll just keep monies in a place where I don't have checkbook, where it's very difficult. I have to get up, go to the bank, go and remove, get a teller, do something very difficult. So as long as I don't have access to that cash, it begins to build up and it builds up and it builds up and it builds up over years. You will then find that after 10 years, 15 years, that money now becomes critical because something will happen. And when it happens, it's that cash that you have that will make the big difference. Economies crash. Things come up very cheap. Businesses are there to be bought over. So when you're a small business, just remember this, that no matter how high the pressure is, keep something aside. Keep something aside. You won't die. The fact that you didn't spend that is not going to make a big difference. It will not kill you. That extra that you kept, that 100 naira, that 1,000 naira, that 100,000 you kept, it's not going to kill you if you do not spend it. It will actually become useful. But it's that discipline that you must have.
Amazing. So having a saving culture.
You must develop it.
Okay, so we have a question from Khadija Abu, the head of products of Paystack. And our question reads, innovation often requires bold bets. How do you personally assess risk? And what advice do you have for business leaders who want to innovate but are held back by fear of losing it all to volatility and uncertainty?
Those are loaded questions. So first and foremost, if you're an entrepreneur, then you must have the stomach for risk first. If you don't have the stomach for risk, then there's no point going into entrepreneurial. You might as well take a paid salary and be paid for the job. So risk becomes part of the business. So for me, mentally, I appreciate that risk is, but then there are different types of risk. There's careless risk, there's risk that is calculated. But remember one thing I said in the paper, nobody knows what the future is. So tomorrow is not guaranteed. You can analyze every single thing. You put your money in and something just wipes it all away. Some COVID comes in and everything is done for. So in your mind, when you calculate risk and you're putting money in or whatever you're putting into that business, what I usually do is that what I'm putting in, my mentally can say that I can do away with it. In other words, if it goes and it collapses, I'm not going to die. I just know that you can start all over again. The gift really is in your ability to know that you are able to create opportunities wherever it comes. So if money is lost, you can create new business, you can create new lines, you can start all over again. I started all over again before. Would you get bankrupt in business? Yes, it's possible. 3 times now it has happened to me. But each time you collapse completely, what gets you up again to start is knowing what you have inside of you, knowing that you have the ability to stand up, to go again and do it all over again. As long as you have that mindset, what do they say? A living dog is better than a dead lion.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I'm a living dog.
So we have another question, and this time from the MD of Energy Hub, Olatunde Akintola. And his question reads, how have you been able to manage transitions from various growth phases of Sahara, startup phase, and managing partners' changing interests?
Tunde, well done, and thank you. thank you for that.
You can tell he's speaking from,
from his own experience.
Yes.
First and foremost, every phase requires different people and different type of people. And I remember that at the growing phase, there are some people that you would employ, even your staff is different. Some people don't grow as well as the business is growing. And I believe that one of the hardest periods for me at the initial stage, because I did have to handle HR, one of the hardest periods for me was knowing that I had to let go of some people because they were no longer capable of meeting the growth trajectory. Now they were loyal, they were there, they were ready and all that, but we just could not make it. You have to sit down and take those hard decisions. You find out that in this business, difficult decisions are part and parcel of it. But if you don't take that decision, then the company is going to suffer. Other times, you just know that that business is done. If you remember, I said something about the minute you start into a business, nobody else was in the business. You saw the opportunity, you start growing that opportunity. Nigeria, copy, syndrome.
You have others joining as well.
They just join in. Now, when they join in, you take a look at that business and you say, you know what, it's done. It's time to move on from that business. You must be ready to cut that business off and move on. I remember when storage tanks, building storage tanks was the business. When we started, and we began to build storage facilities, I remember going to Ocean and Oil, Orlando at the time. They didn't have storage. And everybody was building storage for their own use. I decided that we were going to do it differently, that we were going to build storage for third-party use. Nobody was doing it. Are you crazy? How can you build a storage? You're an oil and gas company. You want your storage for yourself. But I realized that we were building storage and using only about 10% of the capacity. What's the point? You have 90% of the capacity available. So bring others. So we went to Orlando at the time. They thought we were mad. Why would you give us storage? But they came and they used it. After about a year, they realized that they were paying us so much. So they decided to go and build their own. But what did this bring? It ushered in the era of people just building tanks as a business. That happened for a few years, and then we realized that the entire business had now become saturated. So we just left it, we had paid off, and we moved into something else. This is what you see with transition. Be ready to move and pivot into another business.
So my final question to you is this. When you were talking about a lot of emphasis being placed on fintech and the technology space, what other sectors do you think urgently need to embrace digital transformation, and what do you think might be holding them back?
Interesting, very interesting question. So I'll just break them into 3 sectors. First, I'll talk about the government sector. E-governance, a big thing. The government operates in silos, and as long as we're operating in silos, we cannot progress. So we need to develop a system where every department of government is speaking to each other. Guess what? It's there. The system is there. The laws are there. The framework is there. Every single thing is there. But nobody is doing it. Political will. Everybody wants to keep silos, right, so that they can make the money that they can without others. Get rid of all of that. So the government has to deal with e-governance within that sector. One-stop shop and all. That's one area. Move that. The second area within the private, I'll just call it the private sector government area. And this has to do with digital IDs and all of that. Today, you have NIN, you have BVN, which is just data capture. Again, we need one system of speaking to each other. Where did I go to? I think it was in Brazil. Brazil has a payment system very similar to what we have in Nigeria, but Brazil has a payment system where every single person, by virtue of their ID card, already has an account number. So financial inclusion. This was really funny because I was on the street and I saw somebody holding up a card. He needs money and he just puts his, I can't remember the name of it, but he puts it up. And essentially, you can wire any amount of money from I'll use kobo, from 1 kobo to 1 trillion kobo. Wow. You can move it. So the system of financial inclusion is so complete, and the amount of transactions moving on a daily basis is beyond belief. This is something that can be done very, very easily. These are low-hanging fruits. But in Nigeria, we're holding, the banks don't want this, somebody is blocking somewhere and all of these things. These are areas that we can look at. So fintech, Nigeria is very far ahead in Africa where fintech is concerned on the continent, yet far behind when it comes from a global perspective. Why? Somebody is holding this back. And Nigeria, there's a lot of money to do this. Lastly, I talked about the organizing of opportunities. Africa and Nigeria has unbelievable opportunities. People can see it. There's a war that is going on, East versus West war in technology. So China is on the one hand, providing 5G, digital space and all of that, creating all of that. America and the West are on the other hand, afraid of what China is doing in Africa and wanting to come. So what's happening? You have found that Nigeria and Africa is in the center of a 4th industrial revolution war. This is the place where the opportunity exists. Now, the question that you must ask yourself as Nigerians and Africans is, where do you play in this entire war? There's a race for your territory. There's a race for your population. There's a race for your youth. There's a race for your land. And you're just sitting down and you're looking. Looking at what? Looking at what? So we must be able to determine that this is what we want out of this race. This is what we want out of this technology. So data centers, sovereign rights and all of that, data centers will become big. AI development. They're developing AI across the world. What are you doing in Nigeria? What type of technology are you developing that answers your own problems here and now? When we capture that data, where do I want to send my data to America? Why do I want to send it to China? Why is China providing infrastructure for me with backdoors that are carrying my data and I cannot stop it? I don't even know that they're taking my data and they're mining data. There's so much. Opportunities exist. This is just scratching the surface. And I know time is of essence. So let me stop here.
It's been so interesting having you here, sir. Thank you so much. And we look forward to having you next year. And,
I know, yes. I've been committed already.
Exactly. So we're going to bring him back next year. So DBNC 2026, we will have Mr. Tonye Cole live at DBNC 2026. So thank you so much. We'll be sending the speakers box to you after the Friday. Box. Yes, you will get it. You will get a box, of course. So thank you so much and have a safe trip.
God bless you. Thank you.